Hello, this is Alicia Henn from Biospherics, and we've made it to Unit 8, important tips and tricks that we want you to know to help speed your way up the learning curve. We're going to start with talking about ex vivo system data. Now, there are two file types that you need to know about. There are .hst files and .csv files. Now, the .hst files, these are history files. They're used only by the Ex Vivo System software to record all of its sensor data and all of the modules, and it's recorded continuously. Now, this data is not usable for analysis outside the Ex Vivo System software. It's important, though, to have backups of it because it is particularly useful for recovery of all the Ex Vivo System sensor data should there be a catastrophic loss of your computer. So it's important to back these up regularly. We like to back them up weekly because we figure that, a week's worth of data, we don't want to lose more than that should there be a catastrophic computer issue. .csv files are what we are able to export out of the Ex Vivo System in order to be able to use it for analysis in other programs. So it's important to also export your Ex Vivo System data if you want to be able to use it for, say, adding to the batch record of your cells or tissues that you're producing in the Ex Vivo System, or say, presenting to other people. You want to be able to show it off, or for, just general lab records. Anything you need to use the Ex Vivo sensor data for, you need to export it. And we'll export data after a big experiment, after a big product run, for producing cells or tissues. We'll export that data after the cells or tissues are done. Or we'll do it at weekly intervals. We don't like to let it go longer than about a week before exporting this data. So, and this is what that data looks like when you export it as a CSV file and open it up in Excel. Now, what I usually do is I will select the top row, which is all my column headers, and I tell Excel to wrap the text so I can see all the column headers. This first column here is the date and time. I'm just going to expand that out so we can see. And you can see that this data was exported from a time, it was last November when this sensor data was recorded, and it was exported at 60-second intervals. So we're looking at 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:01, 5:02, 5:03, 5:04. These are the readings from the Ex Vivo System sensors and controllers during those periods of time, and it was exported every minute. So in the next column, we have the readings. This is a PID, which means it's come from a PID controller. A PC meaning it's coming from a processing chamber. O2 means it's coming from an oxygen controller. There is a 0 in brackets, and that is the number that the Ex Vivo System software is using for that particular module. And then input. And so this means that these numbers are coming from the oxygen sensor. It's the input into the PID controller. So the sensor is reading 5.051684 at 5 in the morning on November 4th. The next column over, we have all the same header information here. So it's the same module, the same oxygen controller. This is output up. So this means whether the controller is trying to control oxygen in that chamber up, and it's at 0. So no, it's not adding any oxygen to that chamber at that moment. The next column is output down. And so this is whether it's trying to use nitrogen to bring the oxygen down. And no, it's not. It's not trying to control oxygen at that moment. And that's because the next column, we can see the set point is 5. So this is very close to the set point. So it's not trying to control up or down at this point. Now, as we scroll across, we have the same sets of data for CO2 controller, for temp controller, and that's the air temperature. We have the pressure, the pressure in the chamber. We have the relative humidity in the chamber. That's a limit control. You remember that, right? VOCs, that's a volatile organic compound sensor controller. Chlorine dioxide, particle control, temp, this is the floor temp control, it has an F there for floor temp, and sample stream pressure. So all of this data is recorded continuously, and this case it was exported every 60 seconds during this time. Now, if you export data from 6 days at 60-second intervals, you get a spreadsheet that is, if we scroll down here, 7,440 lines long. So this is a lot of data. So you can see how highly compressed the history files are and how big the CSV files get when you export them. Now, if I exported 7 days worth of data, that would be about 10,000 lines at 60-second intervals for the export. If I exported that data at 5-second intervals, it would be much, much larger. And if you go to, so if you export too many days, oh, I'm getting ahead of my slides. Let's go back to the slides. So the HST files are very highly compressed. The CSV files can get very large upon export, and it can get so large that it'll freeze up your computer. So you need to balance the number of days or hours that you're exporting with the frequency of time points that you're exporting. So if 60 seconds is okay for the granularity you're looking for, you know, a week is not unreasonable to export at a time. If you really need 5-second granularity on the environmental data and the sensor data in the Xvivo, then you might want to do a day at a time rather than a whole week at a time. It's up to you and what you need out of that data as far as balancing the number of days that you're exporting with the frequency of the time points. So there's a quick shortcut in the Xvivo System software I wanted to show you as well. Up in the left-hand corner of the system software that you see when you're looking at the sensor information for any particular chamber, you'll see this little drop-down menu. It says Process Chamber 3 Control in this particular one. And if you click on the little arrow in that drop-down, you will see Process Chamber 2, Process Chamber 1 show up. So you can very quickly switch between chambers of the same type with this little drop-down menu. Now, if you need to switch to a different type of chamber, like you wanted to look at the incubation chamber that was attached to this process chamber, you need to click the back button and go back to the main screen, click on an incubation chamber, and then you can very quickly, with the drop down in that screen, switch between different incubation chambers. So that's just a quick switch that you can use. Let's talk about importing items. Now, when you import items, it's important to push them all the way to the far door in the buffer chamber before you shut the door and do your log dilution ventilation. This will make it much easier to reach things out from the other side. And we have found it quite helpful to use trays when you're bringing in lots of items, particularly small items, into the Xvivo system. So if you have a little, 1.5 mil epi and it falls out of a rack and you're not fishing around in the buffer chamber trying to reach that out from the other side, it's in a tray and you can pull the whole tray out and reach everything that you have in the chamber. Now, if you do use a tray, make sure to check that the underside is perfectly smooth. You don't have any sharp little plastic bits or little feet that are scratching the floors in the buffer chambers. You don't want to scratch up the floors. Now, if you have a dual buffer chamber system that like you see on the bottom of this stack system where you have a chamber, two chambers side by side, it is helpful often to use one as an indoor and one as an outdoor for strategic material flow. If you do this, use the chamber that's closer to the laminar flow filter as your indoor, and the one that's closer to the room side of the LFH as your outdoor, because the space closer to the laminar flow hood filter is considered cleaner than the space that's closer to the room air. Let's talk about chairs for a minute. Now, every person has a different body shape and size, obviously, and so different people are going to be comfortable working at the Xvivo system in different ways. Tall people tend to be a lot more comfortable sitting down, get your arms closer to that work surface. And sometimes shorter people are more comfortable standing, particularly if they have to do a lot of reaching into incubation chambers or reaching into neighboring buffer chambers. But if you have to work in the same sleeves for an extended period of time, it's important to be able to sit down. If you need to look at a microscope, it's important to be able to sit down. It just depends upon your body, and it depends upon your process, what you choose to do. Now, if you do want to sit down at the Xvivo system, it's a good idea to sit down first and get your body situated in the chair first before you put your hands in the sleeves, because you don't want to do like I always do, which is I get my hands in the sleeves, I get over gloved, I get everything set up in the processing chamber, and then I look around for the chair. And the chair is usually 3 feet behind me, and now I'm trying to reach with one toe to grab that chair and get it close enough to me so I can sit down. And yeah, that's not the way to go. Sit down first, get yourself all situated in the chair, then put your hands in the sleeves. And when you do get yourself situated in the chair, I'm going to encourage you to try going lower than you normally are used to at a bench or at a table. Obviously, you need to be able to fit your knees under the edge of the processing chamber. But if you set that chair really low, you might be able to get your body even closer to the chamber than you're used to. And this lets the system sleeves support some of the weight of your arms and makes it so that you can relax your shoulders more, relax your neck more, relax your upper back, and be able to work more comfortably for extended periods of time in the processing chamber. And don't be afraid to lean right into that glove front to reach things. It's soft and a little stretchy, but it's quite tough. This particular glove front has been in use daily for almost 8 years now. And here you see Dr. Yan He, who's a small woman, being able to easily open up the incubation chamber door and be able to grab an incubator shelf. And something else that you're going to have to get used to is pulling those shelves out of the incubation chambers in order to reach your vessels off of there. That might be something that you do more often in the Xvivo system than you would in, say, a room air CO2 incubator. You're going to be sliding those shelves out in order to get your vessels off of them. All right, now it takes time to get out of the chair, get your hands out of the sleeves, go find something in the room, get it into the Xvivo system, or move things around from chamber to chamber. Those of you that are working in the GMP world are used to having a second person in the room that's doing things like documenting your actions inside the Xvivo. Those of you that are coming from an academic world, I'm going to encourage you to have a second person in the room to handle all the materials in the room or in other chambers in the Xvivo, so that person sitting at the processing chamber doesn't have to get up and go do everything. This will save you a lot of time. Oh, but let me go back and say, notice this person's kind of hunched up at the Xvivo processing chamber, if they set their chair just a few inches lower, they might be able to sit a little straighter and get their body closer to that glove front for more comfort. Let's talk about workspace layout. This is a photo of a 47-inch processing chamber, and it has some typical cell culture processing items laid out in it. Now, as you work with things in a biological safety cabinet, you learn to put things for your right hand on the right-hand side, things for your left hand on the left-hand side. But things might be a little different when you're working in Xvivo system, particularly if you have gloves on both sides. Now, these are the same items laid out in a 57-inch processing chamber. First of all, you see you've got a lot more room. But also, if you have someone working across from you, you may want to refigure your layout so that both of you can reach the things that are important for you and you both have good workspace. Plan for door swing. Now, in a biological safety cabinet, you don't have to worry about doors, but in the Xvivo system, you're going to have doors that are going to have to be opened at some point during your process, whether that is into a neighboring buffer chamber or into an incubation chamber. So you're going to need to plan for door swing when you lay out your workspace. And you might consider using a small tray to contain a lot of small items if you're going to anticipate that you're going to need to move them in order to do something like open up a door. So that's just one tip that might help you avoid frustration from having to move things around frequently during your process. Now, the glove cuff is something that's new to you, and it's likely to touch things. It is a probable risk surface. If you're working for long periods of time, particularly if you're standing up, that glove cuff and the glove material will work its way down your arm and may end up sort of laying on your thumbs. And we have a quick maneuver that we'll show you during our live session for getting that sleeve material up higher on your arm and getting it up off your thumbs. But you might want to think about that at other times too, just trying to keep that sleeve material up higher on your arms and keep that cuff off your hands while you're working, particularly for people that have shorter arms like me. Temperature controlled items. This is a frequent question we've got. What do I do if I've got a warmed 37-degree process chamber and I just need one tube of cytokines that needs to be kept cold? Well, you can't bring ice or dry ice into the Xvivo system. Those represent a contamination risk. So you need to have other temperature control in use. This is what we use in our lab. We like to use chilled aluminum beads from aluminum bead bath, and we soak those in disinfectant and let them dry in the laminar flow hood, and then pack them into bags that we keep in the freezer. And when we need them, we'll take the bags out of the freezer, we'll disinfect the surface of the bags, and then bring the whole bag in. And we'll keep it in a container like this where we can tuck a single tube of something that needs to be chilled. Now, if you want to thaw cells inside the Xvivo system, and we encourage you to do so, one particularly good technology to use for this is the ThawStar system. This is a system that has a electronic thawing device. It's kind of like a little cell toaster that can go inside your Xvivo, so you can thaw your cells under completely controlled conditions. And it also has a little holder, like a little metal holder, that can go into your freezer, and that can keep your cells cold in this little foam insulator while the cells are being imported through the log dilution ventilation process. And all of these can be disinfected. So it makes it a particularly good system to combine with your Xvivo for keeping cells frozen all the way until they get inside the system and then thawing them in place. And this would replace, say, a water bath where you'd be thawing the cells outside in the water bath and then having to disinfect the cells and having to put them through the log dilution ventilation in a thawed state where they're sitting there in cryoprotectant. We're trying to avoid that. So this system gets rid of that extra time that the cells are sitting in cryoprotectant trying to get into the Xvivo system. Now, this is another frequent question we get. What can we clean the nose prints off the glove front with? What can we clean the outside the Xvivo system in our clean room? Well, generally, you can use any disinfectant that you routinely use in your clean room or lab. And this is a great place to use all those alcohol wipes that you're not using inside the Xvivo system. Use them for cleaning the nose prints off the outside or doing your routine cleaning outside. Oh, I will say before I leave this that we did have one person a customer that came to work in our Xvivo showrooms once that wore heavy makeup. Now, you can't wear makeup in a clean room, but she wore makeup to come work here. And by the end of a work day, the Xvivo system glove front was wearing a lot of that makeup. So, and people are people and people sneeze and they don't want to share germs with the next person that's going to come work in that system. So please feel free to clean the outside of that glove front frequently with alcohol or another convenient disinfectant. When should I call you? This is a great question for new parents, whether they've got a new baby or whether they've got a new Xvivo system. You should call us right away about something that indicates there's a pressure problem in the Xvivo system. Something like if you came in the morning and you found the gloves all inflated and standing out, and that's not normal unless you're actively doing a leak test. If you come in and you see that the glove front is kind of sucked in and it looks like there's negative pressure inside the chamber, then call us right away. It could be something's going on with your pump, or well, we can help figure out exactly what's going on with the pressure in that chamber. If you accidentally water saturate a sensor and you don't know how to dry out the sensors, give us a shout. We're happy to walk you through that. If there are any temperature control problems, it seems like the chamber floor is having trouble keeping the temperature up to 37, please give us a call. If you have any large negative process values, like your sensor is turned on, the controller is turned on, but it's still reading negative 88,000 something, give us a call. We're going to want to troubleshoot what's going on with that particular sensor. Give us a call if you have any alarms that you don't know how to address. And of course, give us a call with any other questions or issues that come up. It's important for us to be able to address any issues before they become a frustration for you. We don't want you to experience that. So, give us a shout, let us know what's going on. We're happy to help. For equipment questions, please give service a call. Here's a phone number here. They always have someone on call that will answer that number. For any cell or process questions, shoot me an email and me or someone on my team will get back to you right away. If you have a question that pertains to a regulatory issue, I'd be happy to forward that to our regulatory team. So we want to hear from you before you get frustrated with anything so we can help. Thank you, and I look forward to talking with you more on our live session. Thanks very much. Bye.